At first we're gonna focus on our breathing. Breathe in easily through the nose. And breathing in is going deep in the stomach, as low as possible. So we try to avoid breathing high from the lungs. But while we breathe in, we feel the wind and the breath sink in deep into our stomach, and we breathe out again. And we continue that process. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out. While the breathing continues, we're gonna focus on our eyes, and we're gonna relax the eyelids. So that our eyes are relaxed. And we don't have to actively close our eyes. We bring our awareness to our mouth. And we pay attention to our tongue and let the tongue float in our mouth. Just relax it. And we bring our awareness to our cheeks and relax the muscles. And we bring down our attention to our shoulders, hanging relaxed. And we feel our arms hanging on our lap or resting on the chair. And we bring our awareness to our awareness. Being aware the sounds and the taste and the feelings, just being aware. Being aware of our thoughts, they come and they go. And we bring our attention back to our breathing. And we may feel that our breathing has relaxed. A bit slower. While our bodies and mind is relaxing. And we're going to focus on our breathing for 1 more minute. We're going to bring our awareness to the room we are sitting in. And once you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Ik mag ook niets denken dat het gaat me wel goed af.
Ja?
Ja. Ik weet dat bij vrouwen is het heel lastig.
Ja, dat.
De radio blijft altijd maar doorspelen. Maar volgens mij hebben mannen daar wel wat meer aanleg voor.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point about non. He's telling about the non-thinking that he's able to achieve a state of
Zero
less.
thinking.
Huh?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yes. Thinking and not thinking is an activity in awareness. Not thinking is being, you are aware of the not thinking. Probably you're not aware of the non-thinking at the moment you're not thinking, but there is a moment that you are aware that you haven't had any thoughts. And the the concept or the whole idea in non-duality is recognizing your true nature. And true nature, you're always your true nature. You don't have to recognize your true nature, because thinking mind and everything that happens in the thinking mind is an effect of your true nature. You cannot never be your true nature. The only thing is that once we identify us with the thinking mind, and that what appears in the thinking mind, we may have the idea or the feeling that we are not in our true state. Realizing that we are always in our true state, but not identifying that with what is happening as a concept in our awareness, in the thinking mind, may give you the feeling that you are disconnected or not whole, or not in your true state. And so you cannot never be in your true state. You can never not be in your true state. And that might feel good, because then you don't suffer from the idea that you are not whole or not complete or not enlightened, but it is that we, in our upbringing and in our society, we get the idea that we're not whole and that we're not complete, and that we have to do a lot of things to get somewhere, to be a better person, to be a better version of yourself. And that is where the suffering comes from, is that we are brought up by the idea we're incomplete, and if we do our best, we try to, we can reach the state of completeness. And that is one of the reasons we sit here, is to understand how the thinking mind operates, how consciousness works, and how we can realize that we are always in the complete state. Only the thinking is separating us from the complete state. And that is to give a little introduction in how this works. And the satsang is that we try to understand what Buddha said, the end of suffering, and where the suffering comes from, and what we truly are, and what the difference is between our social identity and our true nature. Our social identity, which is that defines us in our concepts and what we have to be and what our status should be and how we should move in our society and how we are stuck in our social construct against complete freedom, complete liberated from the idea that we have to be someone. And that what we have to be always is an effect is an effect from what we really are. So if we try to be someone, that's also an effect of our true nature. So we don't have to feel guilty that we cannot reach wholeness or completeness. That is what we always are. We are always that complete, wholeness.
How are we doing this?
Then why are we doing this?
If you're already complete and whole.
Well, actually, we are not doing anything. We're just experiencing ourselves as energy in motion. But since we have the feeling that we are separated from nature, or separated from source, we have the feeling of I, with the belief that I'm not whole. So then the I is going to try to fix it, to fix wholeness.
And we feel that way because of social...
And we feel that way because we are self-aware, beings with self-awareness. And so we have the feeling of, so that self-awareness creates the feeling of separation as a body experience that has to learn life, that has to experience life to go somewhere. But once we understand we are not separate entities, there's nothing to do, because then you realize that this is just one big play of God or source or whatever it is. And that we are that source. Like the sea, what is the one big ocean, and the wave might feel separate from the sea, but in the end it's just water, like the whole ocean. So we are the waves that feel separate from the ocean and forget that we are all water. And if we separate ourselves in the thinking mind and think that we are separated, as a wave we are separated from water, we suffer from the feeling that we are separated, while we are not.
So what you're saying is that we are all one, as in spirits, as in soul.
As in source.
Source. Yeah.
God. Yeah. There are different names for that wholeness.
Yeah.
Yes. But since we are self-aware, we can recognize this body as separate from something else, and we identify with the body. We think we are a separate entity, moving in another reality, or moving in a certain reality. And once we understand that we are not separate,
is that maybe why we endured these last 2 years with all this negativity and this daily concept of death, disease, separation, going on discussion, that at the end, or at some point, your mind, your spirit is also going to be affected with that negative feeling. So the moment you wake up and you endure the day, that your spirit is already negatively influenced by all what's happening in the world.
right?
Because we are all like one.
Yeah, I see you see your question. Yeah.
And then you see also people responding to that maybe in a normal way that they're going to get in a fight, or they didn't.
You mean a collective negative spirit?
Yes, that's right.
On the social level, that could be so.
But spiritual, I think, is also connected then, because if you see, what you just explained is that we are all one, and we are.
Yeah.
You see, so we are one source.
Yeah,
and
but
it must have an effect. On the.
It has a collective effect, but that's only on the human level. But I mean with the wholeness. The wholeness. I mean not the human separate from anything, but the human separate as that what is. I mean what we can see with.
I'm talking about the energy.
Yeah.
So the energy is what we all are feeling.
Yeah.
Onbewust dan, hè?
Yes.
And if the energy changes, then we will experience that, and we are feeling that.
Yeah.
Also, we are fill ourselves with that energy.
Yeah. Let me bring it back to consciousness. The state that is our true nature. This is what you mean is a collective experience we have. It is a feeling. It's a perception. It is a perception that is an effect of pure consciousness. And what do I mean with pure consciousness is the fact that we are aware, that we are on. Within the fact that we are on, there's yet no emotion or feeling or interpretation or concept. If we move back from, we can actually do it. So you have an experience, let's say, of any experience. Let's say the negative experience you talk about collectively we have because of a certain war situation going on.
Yeah.
So we have that feeling. Where is that feeling residing in? That is what we try to understand. So we can see the feeling, and then we can try to see where is that feeling arising from. Because once we stay in the feeling, we stay identified with certain concepts, structures, social identities, norms, values. That is on the level of the mind. That's the level of the thinking mind. I mean, that's the level on the visuals, on the hearing, but I always move back. That's what we do in Advaita. We go back to the source.
The rational thinking part.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the mind doing its job.
Yeah, okay.
It's filtering. It gets information. It's filtering, and depending on what glasses you have on, you will see the world. If the glasses are pink, you will experience the world as pink. If the glasses are blue, the glasses you wear, then you experience the world as blue. So the world is always an expression of your perception. In Advaita, we go back to what the true nature is of our being. Not the nature what we experiencing, but where the experiences arise from. If we are meditating and we meditate on the state, for example, you said it. I'm able to have a blank mind.
Yes.
Yes.
To think about nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no thinking, but there is awareness. Because the thinking can only be there because you can be aware of it. So you have a thinking mind and you have awareness. So awareness is the source of the thinking mind. Because you can experience the not thinking and the thinking. You'll be able to experience those both experiences. So when you have you just said it, I had no experiences. So there was someone experiencing no thinking. Yes. I don't know where this leads to, and I forgot the question. But let's stay on the awareness. What we do in Advaita and in different spiritual traditions is not to get into the perceptual world, because that is always changing. That changes. It goes on and off, and it's an always changing world. We focus in Advaita and in Zen on the non-changing world. That is perception, that is awareness, where perception arises from. So when you are saying, I was stilling my mind and I had no experience of thinking, that was experienced.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, now I know again where I was going to. When there are no thoughts of negativity. There are no thoughts of a society. There are no thoughts of a war. There are even no thoughts of a peaceful freedom. There is no thoughts. So in that collective negativity, that always only happens in the conceptual mind. So we can talk about a collective perception, a negative society, but it's always in the thinking mind. It's always in the conceptual mind. But when we go to a state of thoughtless mind, there is no experience of a disturbed society. So the disturbed society only exists in the thinking mind, on the conceptual mind, on the mind where we are able to experience through our senses. Do you have an experience of a disturbed world when you have no thoughts? No, it's not possible, as you say. So that is where we're focusing on. So does a world exist? Any world exist when you're not thinking about it? It only exists on the level of the mind, where the sensory experience is. And that is perfectly fine. That is how we are operating. That is how we are wired. That's how we experience the world. But in Advaita, we ask the question, who am I really? What is my true natural state? Is a true natural state my experience of a bad world or a peaceful world? Or is my true state that awareness where that experience of a bad world or a positive world can happen in? So is the world bad? It depends on your state, on your conceptual state. It depends on your thinking state. It depends on your glasses, the filter you see the world through. But that's a different level, that's a different state. And we have to separate that state to be aware of what our true nature is and what the perceptual nature is. Because if we think there is only a perceptual nature, then we live in the world of suffering. Because there bad and the good things happen. On the level of the non-thinking mind, there is no good or bad, because there is no experience of thinking about good or bad. And then the next phase is that we realize that the state of the good and the bad, or the perceptual state, is just an expression of awareness. Because the perceptual state can only be because I'm aware. And in Advaita we're going back to that awareness, to the state where there's absolute freedom. Nirvana. That's our natural state. And from that natural state, our worldly appearance arises. And in that worldly appearance, there's only duality, because there's only the values of good and bad. And then we collide and we crash and clash.
Yeah.
But on the level of awareness, there is nothing.
There's nothing here. Wow. So that's the non-duality you were talking about.
Yes. That's a non-dual essence of what we really are.
Did you already reach that state of mind?
I know how the state of mind work. I know that I'm never not enlightened or whatever it is. Because I know that the world that appears is an appearance within consciousness, within that awareness. So I know that is already my true state. There's no misunderstanding about who I really am. And that is the natural state. The thinking we're not enlightened is the mind thinking we are separate entities. that we are not whole, we are not complete. All those concepts that we have learned.
So,
Huh?
yeah, so actually what you're saying, so the answer to his question would be yes, you have reached the state of enlightenment. Only the concept of enlightenment is
I have not
as
reached.
if it's something to reach.
I have not reached the state of enlightenment because there is no enlightenment.
What there was, what there always was.
Enlightenment is a difficult word and a mystical word to explain the illusion, the dream where you're living in, and waking up from that dream.
You know, we as human beings are so trained to always have an end goal.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
that's what crosses my mind during my session.
Yeah.
I can call it like that.
Yeah.
That automatically I'm thinking about what goal I'm going to reach, what goal
Right.
I'm willing to reach.
Yeah.
But as you explained it, there is no goal.
No. Not on the level of awareness.
Yeah, correct.
Goals appear as a concept in awareness.
Yes.
Yes. So on our daily level, on the level of the human experience, we have goals.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we experience time and we experience our place on this world, and we have a certain, it's relative. We live in relative concepts in our human experience. But once we identify ourselves as that human with limited experience, we live in a finite world. While that finite experience is an expression of the infinite awareness, what we really are. And it was kind of a good example you said in a thoughtless state, because Advaita, it's not a theory. It's not a theory. You cannot explain it. It's an experience. It's experiencing the dualistic state of our experience. So you say I had a thoughtless mind, and that's the best experience you can have, because in that thoughtless mind there was no war, there was no peace, there was nothing. Exactly.
But is that why we as human beings, because I think in a sense it's like a natural thing that we all want to achieve.
Yes.
Is it that why that we are using drugs, alcohol, to get that
Right. Yes.
non-thinking state of mind?
Yeah.
Is that why people like the effects of alcohol or the effects of cannabis or whatever?
We're always
So,
trying to
reach that.
Yeah, to reach that state, and also and to have no stress, to have no negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we discussed this a little earlier. We always try to find who we really are. Only we don't use the words for that. We try to to experience different experiences to come to that state, but we don't actually say, I want to know who I really am. What we really are trying to do is to come into a peaceful state. We want to enter God's paradise.
Yes.
And we do that through religion, we do that through drugs, we do that through anything. But in the end, I think collectively we try to enter a peaceful state. And why do we try to search for that? Because we recognize it, because we are already that peaceful state. But it's clouded by our society experience.
I had a little trick, which I used a lot of times when I was stressed out or had negative thoughts or depressed or whatever. I trained myself to go back in the state of mind when I was like a young boy, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So I tried to go back in the time when I go to school, didn't know anything about the world, just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
When I can go back to that state, and I can bring back all the feelings, the smells. And it was very helpful. It took me a while to go there, but I realized that going there in that state of mind is, for me, I'm talking about my way of thinking and my perception, it was very helpful because during that time phrase in my life, I was clear. I didn't have any. I didn't have an ego. I didn't need a partner that I always want to be with. I didn't have children.
Right.
I didn't have competition. I had nothing. I just had me going to my daily adventure, which was going to school or playing with my little friends.
Yes.
I didn't have any thoughts about what we are now experiencing during the process, becoming older, which is also another thing, especially the age level which I am now facing. So it's also some how can you say it? It's also a process which. Ja, maybe kan ik het verder in Nederlands doen?
Yeah.
Please, I was just going to say, please
Okay,
speak
because
Dutch.
I can express myself.
Yes.
Het is ook een proces, een natuurlijk proces dat wij als mensen allemaal doorstaan. En het is heel herkenbaar als jij een teenager bent, ja, dan kom je op een gegeven moment in de puberteit. Op een gegeven moment als je wat ouder wordt, merk je dat je wat meer bewijsdrang gaat krijgen. Want dan groei je inderdaad op met die rivaliteit, die concurrentie. Je bent dus meer gefocust op wat anderen van je vinden en denken. Nou, vervolgens ontmoet je iemand, je krijgt kinderen, dan krijg je weer een andere state of mind, want dan krijg je in één keer de zorgplicht die je als mens voelt, als vader voelt, en moeder natuurlijk ook voor je kinderen. Dan ga je richting de 40, 50, dan krijg je, noemen ze de midlife crisis. Het zijn allemaal processen die we allemaal, als ieder mens, of waar je ook vandaan komt ter wereld, allemaal doormaken. Vrouwen gaan in de overgang, menopauze, noem het allemaal op. En dat zijn de momenten waar je geestelijk gesteld op de proef wordt gesteld.
Ja.
En ik denk ook dat daarom dit soort, dat is de theorieën, denkwijzes, zo mooi zijn zo, en ook heel erg goed kunnen helpen om dat proces zeg maar te doorstaan.
Ja.
Zonder dat ik daar heel erg
No, I hear you.
wil willen, want het is een.
Well, I think the nice feeling about being these sessions is because it's not non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And it's trying to understand how if I go back to Advaita, is where you reach a state of non-suffering, or where you understand where the suffering comes from. And this is not about how to develop a better way for your social status or your social life. It's understanding your status as a being, and it is. I experience it as peaceful because it's so non-judgmental. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not personal. It's about experiencing. It's about what is the nature of experience, and it leaves out completely the judgmentalness because there's nothing to judge on the level of awareness. And I'm always going back to that level because we are so trained to be on the level of a daily experience and let us flow with the daily experience instead of going inward and try to meditate and be aware of your awareness. Once you can still your ego, there are less clouds, so you can see the sun more.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about killing your ego. It's about understanding it. It's about being on the level of awareness. About being on the level of what is, instead of always projecting and identifying with what appears.
Ja. Ja. Kan het uitgelegd worden als je echt dus naar dat level van awareness gaat? Zou het uitgelegd kunnen worden als egoïstisch voor je omgeving?
Nou,
een vraag die me te binnen schiet.
Ja.
Dat ik daar
Ja.
druk om maak of zo.
Nee, het is ik noem het altijd gewoon je natuurlijke weg vinden. Je natuurlijke pad vinden. Find your true way. And everything is a true way. There's not a non-true way. The only thing is that there is a sense of being always in your social identity is
Is
the moment you try to conceptualize something.
That's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, you try to conceptualize, and then you are on the level of the thinking mind.
Yeah.
And then you try to fix a position in your social world, how you move and how you can explain what you're doing.
If you compare it to like religion, and try to be a good person, so you
Yeah.
always try to be moral, doing the right thing, thinking the right things.
Yes.
But you also have some thoughts and thinkings that are not morally right. So then
Yeah, but you
automatically
answer your own
come
question
back to
already. Yeah.
the judgment
Yeah.
process and state of mind. And I think for me, my goal, you see, val ik weer terug, hè, zie je? So it's a process for me as well.
Yeah.
Is to eliminate that part, that judge.
Yeah, but focus.
the
I
judgment.
understand what you say. Don't focus on that what arises. Focus on that what it arises in, because once you focus on stillness, on a meditative mind, less thoughts will arise that disturb your emotional thinking.
Yeah.
Once you try to fight a thought or try to be someone, you're in that thinking state. That thinking state will ease while you're not focusing on it. The ego is trying to do its best to be in its best and strongest phase or identity, and it's always trying to be that strong, that strong person that wants to be perfect and.
The ego wants to take over all the.
It's
it wants
always
to control.
Yes.
It wants to take the wheel, the whole.
Exactly. So
the
the
whole
ego,
motor
if you fight the ego, it's the ego fighting the ego. I mean, it's an ego trip to fight the ego.
Yeah.
You understand? So, but you don't have to fight anything. The fight will stop once you realize the ego is fine as it is, and you leave it alone.
I learned myself some tricks. I love it.
Well, the ego.
Ego tried to tempt me.
Right.
Or try to make me feel bad or.
And there's no two. The funny thing is that if we talk about the ego, it's the ego talking about itself. It's not two.
That's true.
So once we say the ego is making me feel me bad, there's no two. There's no ego in me. The me is the ego. So it's one. So the ego is not hurting you. The ego
I'm
is
talking with my ego.
no. That's
Sometimes
correct.
I talk out loud and I think
Yeah.
to myself, if people see me right now, they think I'm crazy.
Yeah, well,
There's a step back in them. There's a step back in it. I'm hearing too. It's still part of ego, but you're stepping back and saying, "I know what you're doing." You know,
Yeah.
I know.
it's being aware.
Yeah.
It's being aware of the process.
Yeah.
And that is also a thing what we do here is not to be in pure awareness, to try to do that, but also on try to get a hold and try to see how the ego is the trick itself.
Yeah.
So it's not being judgmental about the ego, it's understanding the ego because it's there. We cannot fight it because if we try to fight it, it's the ego that tries to fight it.
Yeah.
So it's always trying to fight itself.
Yeah.
You will never escape from that.
Yeah. Forever keep fighting.
Yeah.
And how does that work in a relationship and a family?
Yeah.
Me as a father of my children, husband, wife.
Yes.
How?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We
No,
are.
you don't
we're-
have to do everything right now, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I'm
spitting out my
trying to
questions.
be careful to go into a lot of things because But I can answer it shortly, and then we can dive into it later. It won't change, because now you think the only thing that will be changed is that you are aware of it, and you will probably become less judgmental because you understand the ego doing its job, and so there's nothing to save. You cannot save your ego. I mean, the ego will do it anyway, but there's nothing to save. On the level of awareness, it's already whole and complete. The only thing is that the ego says and has learned that we're not complete. So we have to be complete. And how do we fix that to be complete? Is to lead a good life, or be you mentioned already. To try to fix everything. Perfect status. So we try to be a good person, but that's only on the level of the ego mind. And since we're so identified with that ego mind, we think we are the ego mind. We are that social identity. And in Advaita, we try to zoom out and see that is an expression of pure awareness of the wholeness, the perfectness, the nothingness, allness. Yes. So once you realize you are that already, the ego doesn't have to fix anything anymore. It will recognize it. The ego will be still at a certain point because it has no ground to fix anything anymore. So trying to fight the ego is the ego fighting itself, and that process will relax. That process will relax on itself once you realize and you zoom out and are on the level of awareness.
Zooming out, right? I mean, to me, when you're talking about being aware of awareness and not identifying with content of what we're aware of, it's, to me, I'm always, that there's some kind of shift that's part of that. That's not, it's almost like you're on one track or one channel with thought. And then there's other channels that are maybe a little less intense or dense, like tracking body sensation or somehow shifting. For me, when I shift out of just the thought channel, it's easier for me. So when I hear you say zoom out, there's almost, that's one of those more, not that anything, if any kind of trick or technique doesn't necessarily work, but they kind of work for a little while.
Yes.
To get out of the
Zooming out
of one
yes.
track.
Right.
By zooming out, you mean literally?
Yeah, literally
to,
zoom out.
Look at yourself from.
Literally zoom out, but I have to use the word zoom out as a trick to gradually understand how awareness or consciousness works. Because zooming out is a trick of the conscious mind or the thinking mind, but in steps we need to understand how the process works.
Yeah.
There is actually no zooming out, because in awareness or in consciousness, everything happens. There's no zooming out.
But if you don't try the little tricks, you won't really get out
Exactly.
of it either. Like when you bend a spoon, you
Yes.
bend a spoon, you have to keep doing like this, and eventually it warms up and gives way.
Yeah.
It's a little like doing this with the fixated thinking state, kind of like, we're going to try this thing, and then something softens a little bit. It's less dense,
Yeah, and in these sessions we get aware of it.
Right. Yeah.
And in these sessions we get aware of the construct the mind is doing anytime, and as a result of awareness. So, and that is the whole idea of Zen and Taoism and Advaita and Buddhism, is to end the suffering which comes from the thinking mind. The suffering only exists in the identified position. You have awareness, ego mind arises in awareness, and we only think we are this. We forget we are this. Mm-hmm. So once we are only here, there's suffering happening. Once we're here, there's only observation of the suffering. but not identified with it. Well, that is a state we naturally are, and we have to get there again, because we are so misinformed about how we what the essence of life is, and what the essence of our social identity is, and the seriousness.
What is the essence of life?
Well, as Nisargadatta said perfectly, the essence of life is living itself. Yeah,
Jazz, I have to go.
you have to go as well. Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Yeah. See you next time.
Yes.
I'll.
Tomorrow or
Yeah.
Ja, leuk, ik ben er ook bij, dan weet je het vast.
Yeah. So we can end this session. Nice, very nice. No, let's end it because
Yeah, perfect.
and we
Yeah.
managed to discuss so many topics already. So we have a lot to.
Ja.
Yeah.